I'm Brittany.
I'm Justine. And we're
very drunk.
We're also the host of It's About Damn Crime,
a true crime podcast, but with a twist.
As minorities ourselves, we wanted to focus more on minority crimes.
You know, all the stories you hear way less about.
Check us out on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasting on.
And remember, there's a lot of desert out there.
Cheers.
Salud.
Welcome. Join me on this journey, won't you? You're listening to In the Mix. Hey there, mixers and hide and seekers. This is In the Mix. I'm Mixter Hyde, and I'll be your host and guide on this wild ride. Each week, I talk about culture and interview people making culture, oftentimes other podcasters. I believe that everyone has a story to tell and a message to share, and I intend to hear as many of those as possible. Join me and let's discover something. You guys, this is our last week with Scott Thrower. But I honestly have to say that this has been a really great interview. I have absolutely loved interviewing him. He's super amazing and super fun. And I hope everybody out there is having a great holiday. I am thinking about you. I love you guys and I miss you. I don't know why I just said I miss you like I haven't been here in weeks, but I've been here this whole time. Whatever, it's fine. Anyway, I have a whole lot of stuff lined up for you, but there might be a little bit of a delay on some of it. I don't think there will be a huge delay, don't worry, but there might be a few tiny delays here and there. And the reason there might be tiny delays is literally because I'm working on a really big project that it has to come out on January 1st, as most of you know. So I want to make sure that that is up and ready, at the very least to have the first 2 episodes edited, because I'm doing all of that editing on my own, and god damn it, it's complicated. But anyway, so I might be a little bit delayed in getting some things up, but I'm going to try to make sure that that doesn't happen. There might be a week that there is a break, I'm not sure, but we will see. This week, if you didn't get a chance to check it out already, I would really love it if you could check out Criminal Musings. This week, there's a very special episode that went up. It is the 25th anniversary of a tragedy in my hometown. I just sounded like I was about to get weepy about it, and I almost was for a second, but it's the 25th anniversary of that tragedy, and I wanted to cover that case on there, because I think it's important, and I really think that understanding that case is very important. But I'm not going to bum you guys out right now, in general, but if you can check that out, I would really love it and really appreciate it. So, without further ado, I give you the final part of my interview with Scott Thrower, the awesome one. My name is Jordan Redfield Wade.
Well. If it isn't the so-called People's Champion.
By day, I'm a philanthropist and private investigator.
You risked your own life to try and protect someone who needed it. If that's what's needed to be a hero, then I want to help.
But by night, I protect the people of Newark City in a different way.
My name, champ, is Redwing.
Do I need to count the sheer number of felonies you committed today?
As she lay dying, I promised my mother that I would fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves, and I refused to let her down.
I would do anything to keep you safe, you know that, anything.
Even murder?
If that's what it took, then yes.
I am the defender of Newark City.
Justice is not something you can manufacture.
I am Redwing. I'm supposed to at some point this year do stand up at an open mic, and I don't know when that's going to happen.
Oh, that's terrifying.
It is. I've written multiple, like I've written a minimum of a half hour, and I just don't have, like, I just haven't had the drive to get up and do it.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason is I don't think I can do it in the town that I live in.
Okay.
Because the main story that I would love to tell, because I can tell it real well. I've told it in front of children. I've told it in front of adults. I've told it, and that's the kind of comedian I would be, as a storytelling comedian.
Yeah.
Just baseline, it's the one that makes the most fucking sense to me. But whatever. And that's so if I'm gonna lead with my strong story, it can't be in a place where it is a common experience.
Okay.
Like, I mean, even though, like, I've told this story to multiple kids, the kids all understand that this is a thing that can happen. So while they are all laughing, they're laughing more at my delivery of it, which I guess is great. That's a great sign.
Yeah.
But like, it's not, I don't know. They're laughing at my delivery. They're not so much laughing at the content of the joke, and I need both for it to really have the full effect.
Okay.
I will tell you the joke later, because I actually kind of love it. It's a really crazy
With story-based stand-up, at least you've got that structure there to help you remember. The reason I'm terrified of stand-up, like, I'd rather go on stage with absolutely nothing and improvise. That doesn't make me nervous at all. But to go up there with jokes that I have to tell, due to my shitty memory, that is terrifying.
Oh, yeah. That's why I couldn't do the other kind of comedy. Like, I even have been trying to figure out, like, how do I go from one story to another?
Yeah.
Because if I can remember that, if I can do that, then I won't forget a joke as soon as I get up there. Because I also have really bad stage fright. That's the other problem with why I haven't done this yet. Is literally, I'm terrified.
And with storytelling stand-up, you still have to figure out the beats, though. So there's still the memorization of that, because you have to get jokes throughout. And it's like sitcoms. Some sitcoms have a joke every 12 seconds. Some sitcoms have jokes every 30 seconds. So you've got to figure out the pace of your jokes within that so that they can build to your final joke. There's still there's a lot of work involved in stand-up that a lot of people just don't realize, because you've got to hit those beats and make it look like you're not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. So
and that's so one of the shows that I listen to that I love so much is Put Your Hands Together, which is it's a stand-up comedy show that
about prayer. It sounds like it's about prayer.
Put Your Hands Together. Oh God, it could be with that title. Oh fuck. Oh no. That is so funny. No, it is instead a comedy hosted by two lesbian wives. I love their show so much. It's really very funny, and honestly, it's funny, but there's also been moments where, like, it is very genuine and very real, and where I've had to pull my car over because I was sobbing hysterically because someone said, so the two hosts are Cameron Esposito and Rhea Butcher. They're two of my I love them. Their show is really great. But Cameron the other day, this was a few weeks ago, actually. I don't know why I said the other day. A few weeks ago, she, for the first time ever, kicked someone out from the audience, kicked them out of the show. It was because he was a dude who made a gross sexual remark to her, a lesbian woman, on stage. And she was like, "You need to get the fuck out so I can continue my set." And he left. And then she stopped telling jokes for a minute and was just like, "Look, this was the when all of that stuff was happening with the Confederate monuments and whatnot."
Yeah.
So we're seeing all of that. She was like, "Look, it was until earlier this week I didn't realize how terrified everybody, how terrified people of color are about the fact that that you have to see this every day. And it was my privilege to not see that. So she was talking about that. And I believe the exact words that made me start sobbing hysterically were, "I understand and I'm sorry. And if you need something from me, we'll make that happen." Like, and I was done. I was just out. Like, I'm like, and I can't go to work now. I have to stop right here on the side of the road. There's like a long series of tweets somewhere in my tweet history, like just about like how about that moment. And like, even though that wasn't like necessarily comedy, it was someone being on stage and being genuine in a way that like really meant a lot. And I wasn't even sure if she really knew in that moment, like, how much exactly that meant to me. But I will say she did reply to me on Twitter, which that was the first time she ever replied to me on Twitter. And I was like,
we had a similar situation here in Toronto with Black Lives Matter. Not this last Pride Parade, but the one before it, where they stopped the parade for a while.
Yeah, I remember that.
And one of their demands was that they didn't want to see the police have a float in the parade thereafter. Mm-hmm. Because for some people, like for a white guy like me, seeing a Pride Parade that has police in it means a very different thing than a person of color who is seeing that, because their relationship with the police is very different.
Yeah, though even then, the interesting thing there is that, like, white queer people don't have a great history with the police either.
Yeah. I mean,
like, we have a really bad history with it.
Just last month here in Toronto, we had a situation where they did a raid on a park because they'd heard gay men were hooking up there.
See, yeah, and that's exactly
it. And that's just within the last month. The fact that that's still happening is weird.
That is so fucking crazy to me. Like, that's so crazy to me. I feel like we do that in certain parts of America too, obviously, but like, I feel like in the majority of America, I know in my area, they don't do that. Like, they'll do that if it's like sir, this is a legitimate public park with children at it. What the fuck are you doing? Like, and at that point, like, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, please step off the slide and put your pants back on.
Yeah, I'm like, that's weird and creepy, and absolutely not. Like, if it's a place that has a playground, the answer is no.
Yeah,
and that makes sense.
But if it's like 3 a.m. in a park that otherwise is not really getting used,
yeah, then it's like, then who the fuck is it hurting? Yeah. Two, shit, officer, why don't you join us, motherfucker? I'm like, that's weird fetishes. Anyway, uniform fetish. Anyway.
Yeah, I live directly next to a park, and with a dog, that meant that I was often walking the dog, like at 2 a.m. through the park, and I'd see a lot of men hooking up, or like I'd have to pull the dog away from used condoms on the ground, other gross things like that. But it happens. I mean, I'm not encouraging it, but
I think it's a good thing. Like, I personally think it's a good thing. I mean, granted, like, I am also, I don't know, I have a weird relationship to, like, cruising and hooking up in general, in that, like, one of the things that changed for me relatively recently, in the last, like, 3 years is that, like, so I used to have, like, huge body image issues for, like, a real long time. And I don't have them as much anymore. I mean, they're still there. They're never going to die. They're just going to be there in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. But they're not as serious as they are anymore, because I found a gay nude beach with a cruising area. There is, I'm not even fucking kidding, like, I've never felt better about myself than when I went there, not because of other people being around, but simply because of the connection I felt to nature with all of that. And feeling healthy, because also there was a hike involved to get there and a hike to leave there. And then while I was there, I was walking the whole time. Okay. So, like, I'm also technically in the best shape of my life right now. And also I was doing, I also started doing circus lessons, around then as well. The acrobatics specifically. I was real good at the trapeze. But anyway, Okay, not really good. I was passable at the trapeze. I like weirdly had lost flexibility. I used to be hella flexible and just lost it at some point. So like when I was up in the air, I'm like, fuck, this move seems like it's possible for me. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. I can't. My knee is fucked up and I can't bend that way. Oh, anyway, yeah. So that was that. But so like I was in the best shape of my life and I was going all the time and I was enjoying just being there and being in nature, though I did develop a fetish after that, though, and that is coming upon sex occurring. I can't explain it. It's a really weird thing for me, even to understand what is happening in my brain when that happens. But
yes,
like,
I can't say I share this particular one because some of the things I saw in that park. Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I, like, unsuspectedly finding somebody fucking, or not actually, no, because you see, it's not specifically fucking, because coming across someone doing anal, I actually just, no, I actually don't want that, actually. But coming across somebody getting a blowjob from another person, I can't explain why I find that to be amazing, but my brain likes that. It likes it a lot.
If people could explain their fetishes, it would be a whole different world. But you'll be happy to know that Toronto has a nude beach as well.
Yay!
I've never been there, but it's a short ferry ride from downtown. So if you ever go to Toronto, you could seek it out.
I just might, because Toronto's actually not far away from me, realistically. Quebec is closer, obviously, but like it's not realistically that far away. Like I could feasibly do it, but I have not, as of yet, been to Canada in my life, and I want to. So it might be on my list.
I've only been to the U.S. once in my entire life, so I was too young to remember it. So,
okay, fair then, fair. We'll do an exchange program. But yeah, that changed my whole view on myself, and it was really nice. So, but also naturally that having a cruising area did change how I feel about cruising as a thing. And also the fact that cruising basically exists because us having sex was outlawed.
Yeah.
And due to that being the case and not even being able to have sex in our own homes without potentially risking getting arrested for having consensual sex with a person that is in our home, that we are in a relationship with, whatever, anyway. So going to a place that was public but still hidden and also guarded in a way, because like in the way they used to work, there was a little bit of a lookout situation. Which is really fucking cool.
Well, because historically, if you were caught in that sort of situation, it could ruin your life.
Exactly. And in honesty, it still could. And I'm a little conflicted on whether or not I think that makes sense. But like in that like quote unquote public indecency, I mean, maybe. But like also, if it's in the middle of a forest, I don't think that's public indecency anymore. Because like really, who was going through that forest? Like if it was on a trail that was a family-friendly trail, that was a marked trail that everybody knew was there and that families would go on, that's different. At that point, I'm like, nah, that's, if a child could have been there, then there is a problem. But also, the times we live in now are not the same times we lived in before. We're in like in the 90s when I could just roam all about, like, and no one actually cared. Like when I walked across town when I was like 5 by myself, like, and nobody cared that I did that just because I wanted ice cream. Literally, I did that because I wanted ice cream.
Back when children were free range.
Yeah, like back when that was the case, like. Then it was a lot more then it was difficult to figure that out. kids don't be leaving the house no more, so that doesn't really happen. Like, we're not worried about whether or not kids are going to come across it randomly in the woods, because honestly, at that point, they're just not going to, like, it's not going to happen, so they're not going to see it. So really, we might as well just let people go and fuck in the woods. As long as they can't be seen from the road, then why the hell not? But, like, hey, that's also, it's to each their own. Though I will say, I highly recommend, even if you are on a break from true crime, I discussed this on the episode of my show. Okay, for my listeners, this episode has already been out. It is episode 5. But episode 5 drops on Thursday, and there's a line in there that I want you to hear about what we were literally just talking about.
Okay.
It is, I may have turned sucking dick in a forest into a protest statement. That might be a thing. But anyway, also the best kind of protest. But anyway, that's actually, though, tying that back to cruising in general, it is kind of the best and most bitchy thing to do. To be like, oh, we can't fuck in our own homes? Watch me go fuck in every single park. That's the pettiest response, and I love it so much. That's a petty response that could only come from homosexuals, and I love it.
Well, this is going to be a to each their own situation, because cruising's never really been a thing for me.
Yeah, like, I mean, and the to each their own statement there is really very true, because, like, certain people are comfortable with it, certain people are not. And if you're comfortable with doing it, I think you should be able to do it so long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, and as long as everyone involved is a consenting adult.
Yeah,
which also
that's why
is
I'm glad Toronto has a nude beach. It's not my thing, but yeah, I'm glad it's an option.
Yeah, and, like, for a person like me who, like, it changed, like, nude beaches changed how I feel about, like, my body and whatever, in a very positive way, that, like, it does make, like, it really, it was helpful. But I can see that
North America has this weird thing about nudity that just isn't shared by a lot of the rest of the world.
Oh, yeah. Like, we can't see a titty, because seeing a titty immediately becomes sexual.
I mean, in Ontario, women have been able to go topless for a very long time here in Ontario. I never actually see it happen, except during the parades it tends to happen, but the rest of the time it doesn't, although they have the right, which, and have nipples too, so what's the point?
Yeah, and that is amazing. That's amazing. I'm so happy to... In New York, that's a thing as well. Like, you could technically just walk topless down the streets of New York and it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
The streets of New York City would not be an issue. I mean, unless you had, like, a full-grown adult man just sucking on your titties in the middle of the street. That then becomes a different situation, because then that's, like, public sexual acts, and that would then be a problem, but whatever. Anyway, like, but that's, and even then, like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I would feel differently about this if we also got comprehensive sex ed. But anyway, that's, I don't know, being a little shady, to my own country that fails at everything. I don't know. The country just fails a lot. But, steering away from that, into...
Yes, we got there from stand-up comedy, I believe. Stand-up comedy.
I don't know how the shit that happened, but all right. Like, sure. But I love... Okay, so I have 3 more questions.
Oh, wow. We've only gone through 3 of the 6.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But these last 3 are rapid, and I think they're rapid fire. So I think they'll be pretty fun.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So I'll ask this is question 4. And it is, what food dish reminds you of home?
Oh, geez. See, I'm in a weird situation because I turned vegetarian when I was 16. And the rest of my family has always been meat oriented. So a lot of food has been, I've had separate food from my family since I was 16, maybe even starting before then. But my mother was always really great at desserts. So certain desserts still reflect home for me. And my mother makes something that she calls Chinese casserole, which is just, I think whoever titled it was just because there's rice and soy sauce in it, because otherwise it doesn't seem authentically Chinese in any way, shape, or form. But every so often I try and recreate that in a vegetarian way, just because it's one of those dishes that Mom used to make that I used to love. And on a vegetarian level, we've never been able to recapture it. But yeah.
What is in that? Because that sounds fascinating and delicious.
It's mainly rice and cream of mushroom soup, because everything my mother makes has cream of mushroom soup in it. Soy sauce, ground beef, and it's minute rice. It's not even real rice. It's minute rice. And then there are these orange noodles that go on top of it, and it's just baked as a casserole.
You know what? That sounds fucking amazing, and I really want it now. Oh my god, damn it. Like, that sounds so good. My aunt makes a Mexican lasagna, though she developed a whole bunch of food allergies recently that sort of destroyed the recipe. Yeah. But it's because I think she was even allergic to corn too, so like the whole situation, like there was no taco shell that would work for her anymore. So and that's one of the layers. So that immediately is just gone. But
hey, I can respect that. I've now been diabetic for 2 years, and that had to change everything. So yeah.
Okay.
The dietary changes you have to make.
Type 2 or 1?
One of the more exotics.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see. Interesting. I didn't. My sister is. My little sister is type 1, so I didn't realize there were other kinds. Other than the first 2 pre-diabetes and like a couple others that I knew of, sort of.
Gotcha.
But I think all of my family is a little weird in terms of weird in terms of how our body processes things. Because I know that I have something related-ish to that, but it's not that bad at the moment. It's just something that we have to watch out for, because it could at some point go real south. Gotcha. So I have to pay attention to that. But that sort of, it doesn't really cause me any pain or anything at the moment, so I think we're fine. But though I don't know, it's whatever. But that's interesting. Cool.
Yeah, I just suddenly have to change, because we get so used to our food patterns. So when you reach a point in your life where you suddenly have to change those patterns, it's weird because it affects your relationships with people. Going out to a restaurant and just eating used to be as a vegetarian, it was still tricky. But being a vegetarian in Toronto, in a big city, you have so many more options. But then suddenly being a diabetic vegetarian in Toronto, that just shrinks your pool so much, and it just changes social situations. Like going to a boyfriend's family's house to meet them and having dinner. That is suddenly not an easy thing.
Right. Oh, wow. I didn't even think about it in that context of okay. So one of the things that I always think of when I think of people who do have this happen to them, I find that they wind up, it's a lot of responsibility to drop on a person, but I occasionally think that okay, that was about to be worded very awkwardly, but not that they're better for it, but that that responsibility, that level of responsibility and knowing how serious it is winds up being something that transfers over to other things in life in a really positive way.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to say. And that didn't sound like an asshole statement. Good. I feel better about it.
I find that how good I am with treating it does vary. I'm usually pretty darn good, but every so often I just go off the rails. Like, not hugely off the rails to the point that I'm going to be put in the hospital again, but off the rails enough that I'm like, eventually I have to check myself and get back on the program, because it's very difficult to be so regimented all the time.
Oh, yeah.
When we take so much comfort from food and we use food so much to help build relationships, food is such a big thing in our lives. It's difficult. I mean, and I'm not saying, like, there are a lot of people out there who have it worse than I do. So I'm not looking for a pity party or anything like that. But food is a big thing.
Absolutely. And I also just really, really thought about the fact that, like, of being a vegetarian with that, like, actually really is hella complicated, because
it does get tricky.
Are fucking crazy. I remember when my little sister got diagnosed, we started to do pretty much literally everything with her, like, alongside her, so she didn't feel weird about having to do it, because she was like 9. It was really pretty rough for her to just feel like she was doing it all by herself. Like, even with the, like, I still feel like I'm a wuss, because, like, even with just the finger prick, like, I was, like, sobbing. Like, I'm like, I can't do this. And she's like, yeah, no, this is fine. And she would laugh at me.
I was so terrified of needles that when I was first diagnosed, I was on insulin for, like, months and months and months. And just to give myself a needle, I had to stand there for half an hour just working myself up just to be able to jab it in.
Oof. I would be the same way, though. I still, like, it's actually funny, because while we were sitting here, I noticed that there was, like, a weird little mark on my hand, and I was concerned. I thought it might have just been a blister, so I, like, poked it with a sewing pin that I had sterilized. Well, all of this, by the way, has just been happening while we were speaking.
Gross. Okay.
Right? Yeah, and it's really not great. I also fidget a lot, so, like, things will just be happening. I'm like, oh, fuck, I didn't realize I was doing any of this. But, like, ultimately, like, I think it might have just been, like, a bite of some kind. It is fine. Like, ultimately, I'm fine. But, like, I did all of that, like, put a Band-Aid on it. But that was still, like, I mean, it wasn't, like, a needle, but, like, it was a sharp implement that I poked into my hand that definitely did cause a light amount of bleeding, but it wasn't, like, I don't know, but that wasn't really a problem, and it was more that, like, there is something here that needs to happen right now, and I need to deal with this, so I'm going to deal with this. So I guess I don't know how I would fare in terms of like, having to give myself injections, because, like, I mean, I think I would probably get used to it eventually. I'm imagining that's what happened for you as well.
I barely even think about it anymore. And my sister, who's also terrified of, probably more terrified of needles than I ever was, her cat became diabetic. So suddenly she had to figure out how to handle needles when she's terrified of them. And it's just something that you learn to do.
I was gonna say, this another semi fucked up sounding statement. I think if you have to do it on someone else, I think it would be actually much easier. Now that, like, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. If you have to, like, if she, God forbid, developed, like, the same thing that you have and had to give herself injections, I feel like it would be easier for her now, because she's had to do it for her cat for this long. Like, so, I mean,
new diabetics should be given diabetic cats, just so that they're learning.
No. If you think that is a thing that might wind up happening to you,
like a service animal, we create diabetic animals just to give the diabetics.
Let us not create them, but let's, like, maybe we should, like, I don't know, like, if we were to train someone to, like, be, like, if we trained people to be able to give injections, I think we would be a lot, like, that would be, I mean, which we probably should do, just given the sheer number of allergies and how many EpiPens, and how, well, actually, to be honest with you, how fucking expensive EpiPens are. Fuck that bullshit. Jesus Christ. Like, I have multiple allergies for which I should probably have one of those. One of them is smoke in a house.
You are allergic to everything.
I mean, most of, like, for cats, not that big a deal. Dogs, not that big a deal. Like, I mean, because it's just a matter of washing my hands. Like, I don't even sneeze with them. It's not that bad. And also the 2 ones of those that I have, like, we keep them very, very clean. So, like, it doesn't happen, basically.
Okay.
Also, if you feed them wet food, it makes it less severe. Because they have the oils and whatnot, and for some reason it helps it. Anyway, so there's that. Pollen can get real shitty sometimes, but, like, Zyrtec clears that up, so, like, it's fine. But the one that is never fine, the one that will never be fine, is smoke, specifically pot smoke, sage, and some kinds of cigarettes, most cigarettes, to be completely honest. If any of those are smoked inside of the same room, if that room does not have decent ventilation, and they've just smoked an entire cigarette, and like you can actually start to see the haze of the room.
Yeah,
my throat will start to close up. So like it's real not great, especially given that like marijuana in my state was like just legalized. So I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, across Canada, it's getting legalized in less than 10 months, I think. Yeah.
Oh man. Like, and I mean, we talked about my grandmother earlier. Like, I'm fine with that as a thing. It's just, if it's gonna happen, like, I need for there to not be the smoke. Because, I mean, even the plantness of it, that sounds so stupid, but, like, the plantness of it is already a problem, because, like, being mildly allergic to that plant which I think is the reason that the allergy gets really as severe as it does, but I don't know. It also is translated, by the way, that same one, or not necessarily that same one, but one that's very similar to it. Like, if you have the allergy to the smoke, like to smoke in the way that I do, one that will most likely crop up later on is an allergy to hops.
Oh no, beer.
Yeah, so beer's out for me. I can't do it anymore.
Oh, no.
That was earlier this year, but also, like, I mean, to be fair, I never drink beer anyway, so, like, it wasn't the end of the world to me.
Yep.
But then they told me that cider was out, and that was hell. I was so mad. And because cider lasted for a while, but, like, something in cider now is not good for me, and, like, my stomach will be horrible for weeks.
Yeah.
It's bad. Anyway, so yeah, like, no, it's the things like learning how to do an injection for an EpiPen, but like actually having to test this, not necessarily on a person, or like if you're testing it on a person, you're testing it with something that is not actually epinephrine, obviously.
Yeah, because that would be a terrible job just to be the person that everyone kept testing needles on.
Yeah, like that. Like, I mean, I could see that in like a first aid class. Like, that's like if you add that to a first aid training, like you have to practice this. But it's like an injection of like, I don't know. I can't even think of like what the injection would be that like wouldn't harm a person. But like I know they have something like that. There we go. Yeah, where you just had to do that, and you had to do that like you had to do that like once a day for like a week. Yeah. Either in another person or in yourself, and like that, just to build up that. So if it's something that you wind up having to do later, it won't be as big of a learning curve to like doing it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just like a weird thing, like plan for your future, plan for the future being that you gonna have this issue, which sounds negative, I guess. But also, I don't know. Maybe that will be helpful for people. Oh dear, but that's interesting. Also, I wanted to ask, what made you decide that vegetarianism was going to be a thing you wanted to do?
Well, I've always been grossed out by I'm a big fan of animals, as we've already covered, and I was always grossed out by the fact that the meat on the plate had been an animal. Like when you sit down to a piece of roast beef and you finally find a vein in it.
Ooh,
just
oh God.
So gross. So gross.
Oh no.
And I'd grown up around farms because my father's side of the family is farming. So seeing buffalo and so forth and being like, oh, that buffalo is so adorable. And then wandering into the house and seeing a buffalo head on the wall just grossed me out.
Yeah, I can't. Oh God, even with deer, I freak out. I've never had venison in my life, and I never will. and nor will I have like whatever the fuck they. What, veal? Is it veal? That's
veal. Yeah,
baby.
With that,
I'm like,
yeah, that baby cow that never leaves a cage because they don't want it to develop muscle. Yeah,
nah, fuck that. I cannot. I never would. I at this point will only eat like birds. And I can't explain to you why I will only eat birds. There's no actual reason for that. But, like, birds.
Everyone needs to find their own thing. Like, I've never dated a vegetarian, like, long-term dated a vegetarian. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't bother me that people around me are eating meat. But I just can't do it. Like, I was cuddling with the cat earlier today, and I was, like, watching him think and watching him, like, pay attention to noises up above and then making little decisions that he makes. And I'm like... Why is this not okay to eat an animal? Because he's clearly having his own little life and his own little thoughts and his own little emotions reacting to things. He gets annoyed when I do things to him. Mm-hmm. I don't understand how we can do that to an animal and yet not do it to a person. I don't know. So, for me, it's all about animals. It doesn't make sense to me.
That's fair. I think the sociological, or not sociological, the psychological difference in our brains between the two is that, like, a cat, we have to raise those, and even honestly, in large part, like, you're right, on the farms, you do have to raise those, but I guess there's a bit of detachment there.
Yeah, and see, I just don't have that detachment.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Like, and I think for a lot of people who, like, don't have to... A lot of people, because you don't have to farm your own food, like, you don't necessarily have to think about it. Yep. You don't have to think about the life of that animal beforehand, because you might not interact with that kind of animal literally ever if you're in a city. So, like, that, I can see that, but I also, at the same time, like, that makes... Like, I can understand why we do, because we've done that for thousands of years. Like, we definitely have. Also because we couldn't tell which plants would kill us and which ones wouldn't. Just like, fair. Okay. Totally fair. As things that we could not figure out how to do. Whereas we knew that, like, eating this kind of animal that just sort of stands there and moves slowly, we figured, like, okay, we can get that one. Cool.
Well, and there's that whole evolutionary wise, we needed protein.
Yeah.
We needed it. And now we're at a point where we have other solutions for that.
Yeah. We found other sources of it, and we can also synthesize it. I don't know why I just struggled with that fucking word just there. We can synthesize it as well. So, like, it's not as big a deal if we don't have, like, the meat-based proteins or, like... and we also have vitamins and things, which I'm also still convinced that those are a scam regardless, but I know that some of them aren't. I don't know. Well, I also know that I was vitamin D deficient at one point, and I had to take vitamin D for 3 months, but it was very specifically a prescribed version of it. Yeah. Because the strength of it was, like, had to be really high. And I don't think I took it for 3 months, and I was supposed to, so I think I might have to redo the entire goddamn thing.
Well, isn't that the sunlight vitamin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which you would think, me being at the nude beach, which was during the height of summer, like, I would have been fine, but no, apparently, like, I'm still not great with it. Even though I was, like, literally there every week.
The vegetarian thing, like, I'm not preachy about it. I'm not arguing with people when they decide, like, when we sit down for dinner and someone orders a steak while I'm ordering a salad. I'm not preachy about it, but yeah, it's just one of those things I don't understand about humanity.
That makes a lot of... You know what, though? What this means is that when I have a question about certain kinds of lettuce, I will come to you, I will ask you...
And I will know the answer. I will
lovely. Lovely. Like, it usually tends to be a flavor-related question, because vegetables and me have a hard relationship because there are texture issues there.
Okay.
Fun little fact here. If you are the child born prior to a child who is autistic, you are likely to have similar situations in terms of, like, sensitivity to like the texture of food. Yeah, yeah. So my little sister is on the spectrum, and me having been born 2 years before her, I am not on the spectrum. I have been tested multiple times. I was going to try to quote Sheldon. I just didn't remember the quote fully. I'm not crazy. I was tested. Anyway, I think that was it. But
wait,
anyway,
so is it a thing about the fact that you were raised with someone who has those sensitivities that you might have picked it up from her, or is it something that even if you'd been raised separately, you'd still have these sensitivities?
I would still have the sensitivities.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why that is, but it is proven to be true. And it's a thing that was studied at one point.
There are strange things that happen in the womb. Like for each older brother a person has, it makes them more likely to be gay.
Yeah,
That's weird.
Granted, I'm still looking at that study with a little bit of side eye because I'm not sure about that one. But yes, I remember reading that one. I do like science a lot. So
yeah, because I think that study was something about how a woman's body can sometimes find male DNA within them to be something that they need to reject, and they get a stronger reaction with the more sons they've had. Some of it sounded like witchcraft to me, but
and then also
weird.
It implied it. I think the other thing too is that it just implied straight up that like homosexuality means an increase in estrogen was sort of what it like. That was the piece of it that seemed very like that's based on like old ass like theories that were not true. Because like also I don't know, because sexuality is such a spectrum of things. Like, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I will never have sexual interactions with a woman, because I can't say that because I don't know the future and I don't whatever. I can say that I'm most likely never going to have a romantic long-term relationship with a woman. I can confidently say that. But I don't think that has anything to do with, like, I almost said it, I don't think it has anything to do with science. I'm like, that's not true. It does. But the science is more of a psychological, social growth thing, mixed with biological things. But I don't think that, like, biology in and of itself, because there's just so many variants to how it can go.
Okay.
Like, just given people's sexuality in life and how fluid it is on its own, and how intellectual a lot of it is on its own as well, weirdly. It seems like it is more, like it seems a little bit more like it has a lot to do with puberty. And, like, what happens to us during puberty, but also, like, there's just an underlying code of, like, well, we have the scale for this or this, so we're just gonna go, like, while we're in puberty, like, our body figures something out or whatever, or, like, just makes an arbitrary decision for no fucking reason, and there we are.
Oh, I was gay long before puberty.
Well, there's that too. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, there's also those cases where I'm like, we just fucking knew, and I'm like,
no,
well,
I had a boyfriend when I was in grade 3. He was grade 2. He was a younger man. When his family moved out of town, he left me his favorite Transformer. Yeah. Oh, I've also got journals from grade 2 when we had to draw pictures and write things where I just list all the cute boys in the class.
My God,
I was
love
gay
that
from
so
a very
much.
early age.
I love that so goddamn much. I don't think you understand.
How my parents could be surprised that I was gay later on after they must have read those journals at some point.
Were they surprised?
Yeah, they were. I had to come out to my mother twice because she forgot about the first time.
Also, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that, but I'm like, the idea that she forgot is just funny to me. So I'm like, I feel like you would remember that. Like,
you would think.
It's a pretty big moment for most parents.
Yeah.
Especially when they're like, what? Like, oh my God, I'm shocked and surprised.
I know.
And then she forgets? That's funny to me. I think my grandma did the same thing, though, now that I think about it. Not the one that died, but the other one. My mom's mom, not my stepdad's mom. 'Cause like she still will make these little side comments here and there where I'm like, Grandma, do you see what I am wearing, first and foremost? And second of all, like, have you, like, do you see my haircut? I'm like, no, I'm kidding. That's not the joke I'm making. That's not the hill I will die on, actually. I'm not saying that the number of rainbow origami birds in my office is any indication of my level of homosexuality. But it's a fairly solid indicator. It is in a very rainbow pattern.
See, most people have trouble telling with me, which was a problem for me because, like, I wanted people to know I was gay so that I'd have the chance to date someone. So I had to actively go out and wear, like, the rainbow necklace and all this stuff just because otherwise people just assumed I was straight all the time.
People always assumed I was gay. They just also assumed because I was black that I was a top. Anyway, that's a whole other set of problems.
Okay, so I think we just did question 4.
Yeah, we just did 4. Going back to the... If I'm going back to the look, also side note, the red glasses were really good. That's a great look for you.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm wearing them right now.
Yay! Excellent. Good choice.
I've got 5 different pairs that I rotate between, but I settle on the red more often than not, really.
That makes a lot of sense. I basically wear the color... I wear red and black and gold, and that's literally it. I'll occasionally branch off into green, but green doesn't necessarily do the most flattering things for my skin unless it's like a nice emerald. I do jewel tones. So like an amethyst color will also work nicely, but purple just looks good on a lot of black people. I don't really know why, but it just does. Like almost every shade of purple will look fantastic on me. Red looks really great on me because of the undertones in my skin, and so does, like, it has to be a specific kind of gold. Yellow looks awful on me, but like a bronze gold or like a sunshine golden yellow will actually do fine.
See, I'm pretty heavily colorblind, so for me it just needs to be a color that pops for me to really be able to see it. So, yeah. I didn't realize I was colorblind until I took a painting class in my early 20s, and then it was like, do you see the purple in the sunset? Because, like, I wasn't painting the sunset the way the teacher wanted, and I'd be like, no, don't see that at all. No, it just looks orangey. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay. That's also, I would imagine that is just when you would find that out. Now that I think about it, I'm like, oh, well, fuck, I don't really know how else you would know that. Like, you know what I mean?
It might have come up when I was a kid and people are like, what color is this? Because I could never tell blue and purple apart. They both look the same to me. There were probably little hints throughout, but yeah, it was painting class when I was in my early 20s that I finally figured it out. Another one of my many hobbies.
Nice! That makes a lot of sense. Lots of art hobbies. Also, I like the amount of white in your beard. It's kind of nice. Anyway.
As I said, a slightly younger Santa Claus.
Hey, there it is. Okay, so we will now get to the next question. Oh dear. But the question 5. Question 5 is related to one that a little bit related to one that I asked earlier, but a little bit different. I almost asked it during the D&D one. I guess I kind of did, but it's a little different. So, the question is, if you could be any creature from mythology and folklore, what creature would that be?
Oh, jeez.
And why? Of course.
I always wanted to be a wizard. Some sort of wizard. Something with, like, magical powers always appealed to me. As a kid, I always had the fantasy of walking into the library and finding a spell book on the shelf. That was, like, something that I thought of for years. I've always had a very strong imaginative life, which I've heard can be a problem for people, because if you have a really strong imaginative life, your body feels that you've satisfied certain needs, and so you're not as likely to, like, really push for things in your real life because you're already satisfied in that other life. And I've always been one of those people. My internal imaginative life has always been so strong
That makes sense. So, okay, I have to ask, because because of the way you described that specific scenario of coming across a book, did you read So You Think You Can Be a Wizard? Or So You Want to Be a Wizard. I'm sorry, that's the title.
See, with my bad memory, I do not know.
Okay. Because basically what winds up happening is that a girl is being bullied and runs into a library and finds that book and becomes a wizard, and then the rest of the series is still ongoing. I think it's been going on since before I was born. Yeah. It's still the same characters too. But anyway, it's just, I loved that series, like the first 8 books of the series, and then something changed in my brain. I just couldn't do it anymore. But it's the way you described that. I'm like, I think that sounds like the opening bit of that. But then again, also sounds like the opening bit of Card Captors. So really, it's a good opening bit, really, is what it is. It's just a good opening to a story.
Okay, so it came out in 1982, which means it's very likely that I did stumble across that book at some point.
Okay. I hope so, because it's a really good book series. If you don't recall whether or not you have, I recommend it. It's a good time. It's a real good time.
Nice.
Yeah, it's add it to the reading list, or at least the first one. At least the first one, maybe the first 2.
Okay.
Actually, wait, no, because I think So You Think You Can Be a Wizard, Deep Wizardry, High Wizardry, A Wizard's Dilemma, A Wizard Abroad, and A Wizard Alone, I think were the ones that I read.
Well, I think it's a very common trope for kids, and we see it come up even in Harry Potter, that kids are fascinated by the idea of stumbling across an unknown world that gives them some sort of power that they didn't have before.
Yes.
It is a common trope that we see time and time again in literature.
In almost every kind of media, that's the baseline for Spider-Man. That's the baseline for, almost every superhero. It's the baseline for the novel that I'm writing at the moment too. So it's just something that happens a lot. People just love the idea of finding a secret world that no one else knew about and suddenly being on the inside. I've wanted that same thing for years. Oh man. I think initially it was that I would just like to discover that mermaids are real and I would like to join them. That was initially what it was, and then I'm like, I can settle for magic though. Gotcha. That'll be fine. I'll settle for magic. Settle for magic. What? Fucking settling for magic. Jesus. But no, that makes a lot of sense to me. I like that one. I like that answer. Though, I guess the follow-up is, if you could establish the rules of magic in that universe and how it worked, what would the rules be? I guess you could, or at least what would one of the rules be? Oh, that is such a huge question. It is. That's why I said one of them. I'm like, oh shit, we could go into world building for days. I've always liked magic systems where there's a cost. The Shannara novels where Al-Anon doesn't use the magic much because it costs him too much. Or Gandalf, he doesn't use his magic in big, overt, massive ways because it costs him in some way. So unlike Harry Potter, where everyone can cast as many spells as they possibly want, and magic suddenly becomes less wondrous just because it's so commonplace, I like it to be this big, mysterious thing that you're sacrificing something to get. That makes a lot of sense. I built into the universe of Red Wing. Well, now since I've told people the title, I built into Red Wing that same thing in that magic exists in this world, but the cost is direct to the person, and it is energy. Because essentially, what I defined magic as was energy directed at a goal. So if the if the goal is that you want to breathe life into a paper bird, I'm literally saying that because I have paper birds in front of me right now. So if you want it, like, if you were to tell it to breathe and then it starts breathing and moving and flying on its own.
Which was a story that was actually recently told in LeVar Burton's podcast, which is my biggest competition.
I love that podcast too.
It's
by the way.
such a great podcast.
Great. Ooh,
And
yes,
I
LeVar
hate it
Burton
because it's
reads.
doing my topic better. But there was an episode about a woman who tried to find a way of communicating with her son because she came from another culture. She had trouble. They had that language
I remember
barrier.
that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
but
remember
she
that.
kept making these paper animals that came to life. It was a beautiful story. Highly
story
recommend
is
LeVar Burton's podcast.
Oh God, yes, that's such a good show. My God, even that's one of those ones that I'm like, so unlike a lot of people in my generation, I actually didn't get to see Reading Rainbow / was not necessarily interested in Reading Rainbow because I could read it on my own. Thank you very much. But like, also I just wanted to be outside instead of doing the Reading Rainbow thing, but whatever, to each their own. But anyway, but this now in my life, because also back then I didn't have dyslexia, and now I do. So like now it's, or rather,
I didn't realize it was something you could develop later in life.
Well, it hit in puberty. Like it wasn't, it wasn't like, it was. Well, it was actually a little odd because it was immediately after a really traumatic thing happened to me, but it wasn't related to the trauma. It was gonna happen anyway. Like, it was just gonna start then anyway. Okay. It's just the way my brain is wired, like, that part of my brain kicked in and it's like, oh, fuck, well, since we're growing and changing right now, this is actually a piece of the code here, and fuck. Well, sorry about it. Sorry you enjoyed reading all of those things, and now sitting and reading actual words on a page gets complicated because literally things get up and fly around, which is real annoying. But anyway, that is
weird. I thought dyslexia was just something that you had or didn't have.
No, it's something that it is. It is. Yes,
but
that
it
is
came
true.
Later in life. I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, it doesn't start like when you're a baby. Like it starts like as you grow up. Like I didn't develop it. Like, I mean, I was always a super strong reader, like when I was really young, but like I did have glasses as a kid, and like that was one of the, like, apparently for me that was one of the things where they're like, it seems like these are it. I guess in the beginning what it was is that words would casually on occasion just go out of focus, and I would be like, I don't know what that word is, but I'm context clues, and I just moved on. Like when I was a kid I would just be able to move on, but like when I was older I wasn't able to do that as much. I don't know, it's a little complicated, especially given that I don't remember prior to it, because I was 11. I'm sorry, I was 12 when it kicked in, so like it was a little, I don't know, it was a little bit of a weird time. But yeah, so like now because that is my reality, I enjoy, that's one of the reasons I really enjoy storytelling shows, is because like that's in large part the way that I can consume literature, is through an audio format.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like a show like LeVar Burton Reads, or like Selected Shorts, which thank God Selected Shorts still exist. Jesus Christ. Even if they're doing mainly repeats of things that they've done in the past right now, I still love it. It is wonderful.
I have never heard of it before now.
Oh, well, I guess that makes sense because I guess that makes sense also because you're not in America, now that I think about it. But like, or not in the United States. Like, so it's an NPR podcast, and it's well, it initially was a radio show and has been a radio show for years. Like, I want to say close-ish to 30. Okay. So it just naturally, when NPR realized podcasts for real, started to transition to that. Okay. And I've listened to every single week ever since. Yeah.
Cool.
because I honestly was continued from when I was little. Anyway, because having someone read you a story is really just such a calming experience. So that, I guess, was really the thing that I liked from it.
Well, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to do with Fairy Tales for Unwanted Children, just to build in that whole, you're relaxed, and you're not even necessarily caring that some fucked up shit is happening in that podcast, because it can get weird.
Like, ooh, interesting, this one. Yeah, I find them to be interesting, and I do legitimately look for morals on occasion, and I have a very difficult time finding any. But like, I find ooh, girl, there's a message here.
Some of them don't have messages, at least that I know of. And it's been interesting because some of the listeners have come up with morals that I didn't see when I was writing them. And that's why I kind of try and leave them open-ended, because once I've written them and recorded them, they're not about me. So if you find other stuff in them, more power to you, because, there's going to be some stuff that I don't notice.
There was one that oh dear, I'm trying to remember the basics of the plot, and like I remember it because I remember the emotional connection that I had to it and trying to think about what the moral might have been. And I think what I came up with was that I think it was the one with the hunter. Who was a woman.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I can't remember how that one ended, but it was based on that ending, and all I could think was of the phrase reaping what you sow, and the fact that this is a hazard of the life. This is the hazard of the lifestyle you lead, but not in the fucked up, like I'm talking to sex workers kind of way, but own up and take responsibility for the fact that you have agency and can make choices.
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert, that story didn't end happily, and frankly, it's not. Fairy Tales for Unwanted Children, so they don't tend to end happily for people.
They ended in an interesting format. They ended in an interesting way, I find. It is interesting, this ending. No,
it's nice because podcasting's letting me get away with doing something that, you wouldn't really get a chance to otherwise. If I was submitting these to a magazine, an editor wouldn't really know what to do with a lotot of them. Podcasting gives me an opportunity.
I've written 3 children's books, and they're published at this current moment.
Congrats.
Thank you. I illustrated them as well, because I'm a control freak and couldn't let someone else do it. That is genuinely... I do like drawing. I've liked drawing forever. However, that does not mean I know what the fuck I'm doing when it comes to illustration. I just like it as a thing that I've done for a while because I had an anime phase, as most people do at some point. Most nerds do at some point. And I was drawing the things that I was watching, and I enjoyed it. But then turned it into a style that I can utilize in other places. Anyway, that's unrelated to what I was about to say. But I couldn't even begin to imagine what some of the illustrations would look like if I were to do an illustration for some of them, which is a thing that at one point I was going to do. I was going to draw a couple images from the thing, of the more profound moments from stories that hit me, but I was struggling a bit with that. Struggling a bit with it primarily because I was I don't even know where to begin. This whole thing from start to finish has been...
I'm a terrible drawer. My painting classes didn't result in good paintings. So I really respect the people who can, and I've got 2 listeners who've really sent in, well, more than 2, but 2 people who were really focused on the stuff they made, and one of them is a tattoo artist from Alaska, and his drawing, which I've released as a sticker, was amazing. I'm always impressed with people who can actually make the pictures they see in their head show up on paper, because it's not a skill I have.
Eventually, I will give it a shot, and we will see what happens. I
look forward to that.
No promises as to the quality of what happens, but we shall see. But not the okay. So I'm gonna ask you the third question now. The third at
we
the
went
end of
back.
the. No, it's the third at the end of the second series of questions, because like the first series of questions is the first memory, podcasting, and happiest memory, and then it goes food dish. Then why the fuck can't I remember the one that I just asked? Oh, right, magical creature. And this one, which
Such an interesting
is
collection of questions.
oh
I
yeah,
must say. They say
yeah.
weird things about you.
They say weird things about me, but the answers to those give you a very deep perspective into the kind of person that I asked the questions to. That's
Fair.
sort of the point.
Okay.
That is the point, really. But that's,
So let's see where this path ends.
Yeah, so this last question is, if you could have a non-conventional superpower, or perhaps a regular superpower, but for a very specific reason, and very specific kind of that power, what superpower would it be? And I guess the example, and I think you might like this example, I would like to have telepathy for dogs, but specifically for dogs, because honestly, it seems like they've figured out how happiness works, and I want to know what their secret is.
See, I would not want that because it might ruin dogs for me.
Fair.
Because what if we found out they don't like us? That would be horrifying.
Oh God! Like, because we at least already know that for cats, but like,
my superpower would be I would love to be able to write traffic tickets.
oh
I just
my
want
God!
that ability because there are so many
Yes.
situations where that would make me so happy because people are terrible. And there's never a police officer around. So if I could just go about my day, but also be able to write traffic tickets, I would be
Yes.
so much happier with life.
If I could do that and have them mailed to the person,
Oh, yeah, God.
like just be like I'm looking at their license plate, and immediately upon like viewing a violation, I blink and somehow they have it and it's in their mailbox. Yes, that is exactly what I want to do, because oh my God.
And can you imagine this person who can do these traffic tickets showing up at Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Children and just being, yeah, I can generate traffic tickets and they're legal. That would be amazing.
Like, quite honestly, I feel like that's one of those powers that you would just sort of be like, well, ticket man, like, I don't know what we are going to do with you.
Yeah, there's no space on the Quinjet for you, but I'm happy that you just raised $7 million this year for the city of Toronto.
Right, like, see, and therein lies the other thing that would be wonderful about it.
Yep.
Also, the other thing that would be wonderful about it is I could give those tickets to people who can actually afford to pay them.
And yet, we all know this traffic ticket man, someone's going to kill him very quickly.
Oh, damn right. Oh, absolutely. Oh, God.
That would be amazing.
If it happened to me, I would be pissed. But that's primarily because, like, any time that I am driving and doing something that is not necessarily a great driving practice, it is literally because someone else nearby is fucking up and I need to protect myself from the fact that they're fucking up.
Yep.
But to the person behind me who can't necessarily see that person, they will blame me for it. And then if that person had that power, they'll just be like, well, that one. And I'm like, no, the Lexus in front of me, the one who can afford it, is the one who should actually pay for this thing because they're causing the problem.
For me, it would largely be people who are parking in bike lanes. Oh, it drives me so crazy.
Ooh, God, yeah. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Because, yes. I can't. Oh. People who fuck up parking jobs
Yeah.
are my least favorite people. When I tell you the number of times that, like, I thank God that I do not have telekinesis, because if I did, people would be, like, vehicles would be being thrown while I am driving, like, from in front of me.
Yeah, this is like the danger of the X-Men.
like,
most of us would have murdered a lot of people with these powers just because you can kill people so quickly with them. Mm-hmm. Before that second thought kicks in, like, no, I can't murder a human being. They'd already be dead.
Exactly. Like, quite honestly, what I would probably enjoy doing would be, like, the non-killing version of this would be like, you know what? I'm going to lift this vehicle into the air. They will still be moving, of course, because I am also still moving. But I will, while they're in the air, I will pop all 4 of their tires, and I will gently place them on the side of the road. Which would mean I would have to slow down to do that, but I will still do that, and then I will speed right the fuck back up.
And then I'd come along and give them a ticket for being on the side of the road with the popped wheels.
We'd be a great team. The city would be rich. And it would I would literally only do that for the rich assholes. Or, actually, no, I wouldn't. I almost said something really horrible. I'm like, or the old people that shouldn't be driving anyway. I'm like, but I would literally just take their keys, though. Like, it would be one of those, like, I'm going to leave you over here because I've had this happen a bunch of times. Like, there's a person who was going 25 in a 40. Well, I'm not even 25, going 15 in a 45 mile an hour zone, which is dangerous for everybody. Like, not the least of which is dangerous for them and causing a massive amount of traffic behind everybody. And, like, at that point, I would like to lift that car up, move it gently to the side, and have the keys float out the window. And then I hold on to the keys until I come back later. Because clearly, like, it's one of those things where I'm like, if the issue is that you need a road test again, because that's honestly what it seems like most of the time, is that they're like, oh, I'm just unaware of what speed I'm going because I don't think I can see the speedometer accurately anymore. Then I'm like, well, then shit, then sir, you shouldn't be driving. But also in the area that I live in, we don't have good public transit, so like that's a whole other like issue. Gotcha. But like if we had good public transit, which also, funny enough, with your power, we would get that. Fuck, okay.
Because we can afford it. Yeah, see, my power. I have been thinking about this. Your 6 questions have taken us on a strange journey.
They really have, haven't they? But hey, you've reached the end of them. You reached the end of them, and
I'm thankful because I had to turn off my heating so that my sound would be nice and clear for you, and I'm starting to freeze to death.
Oh, I am so sorry. Okay, well, we have completed everything. I guess now all that is left is let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me at unwantedchildren.ca, where you'll find the Unwanted Children podcast. You'll find our store, which has some designs available, so you can get them on shirts, on notepads, on other stuff. There's a nice little tip jar there for if you like the show, you can give us a tip. Or you could find us at cavernsandcomedians.com, where you can find out about Fook Wimbles, the Gnomish Paladin, and his little journeys and adventures and so forth.
Yes, Queen.
Yeah, and also there's the Fairy Tales for Unwanted discussion group on Facebook, which is a growing community of people who want to talk about what they found out on the fairy tales. And you can also find us on Twitter at periodicallypod.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I will be getting a t-shirt probably tomorrow.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, apparently today is Veterans Day. Not to date this for the listeners, but today, the day we're recording this, is Veterans Day. So I am...
Or if you're Canadian, it's Remembrance Day.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that you guys have that holiday the same day that we do.
Yeah, this is a long weekend for me. It's amazing.
Yeah, I would be fine providing the bank had been open earlier today, because I got paid earlier today, but I do not, I can't deposit the money.
Yeah,
today,
I had to stand in front of the liquor store. The liquor store didn't open till noon because it's Remembrance Day. So, yay, I appreciate you veterans, but it was cold out there.
Same. I appreciate it. I don't see why the bank have to close. It would be easier for me to appreciate people if I could actually pay them.
Can't you deposit
them
checks
money.
via a bank machine in the United States?
You can. The amount of processing time between when it goes in and when you have it is...
Oh.
Yeah. So, like, if I go in... Like, I think most banks are closed on Sundays, just baseline. Yeah. But I think that there are certain branches of the bank that I have that are open tomorrow. If that is the case, I will be driving up and down this county trying to find it so that I can...
Well, I wish you luck.
So that I can purchase a shirt. But anyway, well, that's not the only reason, but I do want a shirt. I was able to get shirts from a lot of my favorite shows, and I want to get one from yours, so
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed. And listeners, please go and check out the show notes, as I tell you every time, because in the show notes there will be all of the links to all of the socials for every one that we've mentioned on here, which I've tried to take notes on. There have been shows that we mentioned that I just didn't do that for, but like, I will probably have the links in the description box. Jeez, this is not YouTube. I have the links in the show notes to all of the things where you can find everything.
Listing shows, if I just start listing shows, it's going to be annoying to you now, like the Not Alone podcast, or other things like Singing Bones podcast, or Curse of Silver, like all of these other things, just to make you put links down there.
Singing Bones end?
Did it? I think she's just on a break.
Oh, I thought she ended it. Never mind.
Oh no, that would be horrible.
I thought it ended, so I unsubscribed, but like maybe it was just a break, so I'll
I think she's on a break.
Again. Okay, I will go check then. So yeah, no, I at this point have not written any of those down because I have given up on that. My hand hurts. So anyway, yeah. So go check all of those out. It'll be super fun. Have a good time, and thank you guys so much for tuning in again this week. Love you guys so much, and have a great weekend. Thank you so much for listening, Mixers and Hide and Seekers. I really appreciate and adore every single one of you. I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere. You can check the show notes for the links to all the socials. You can email me at mixterhyde, that's MYXTERHYDE @gmail.com. There are 3 ways you can support the show. You can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to be listening. You can send the episode to a buddy that you think may want to hear us. Or if you would like to financially support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/mixterhyde. Intro music and outro music are by Aina Haina and Jahzzar, respectively. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. Stay safe, stay beautiful, and stay strange, listeners.